Hello, YouTube. Welcome back to Jordy's Basement. My name is Jordan, and it's the last day of 2020, and we're going to go over our top 10. I am joined today by the lovely Miss Sadie Pearl.
By me.
And, we're going to talk about our top 10 albums of the year. You know, we don't need to say what a year 2020 has been. That's for another video. We've heard it enough. It's not been a great year. But, you know, music's really had a really good year.
Yes.
And part of the reason it really is because these artists, these groups, these bands haven't been able to tour. They haven't been on the road. And so they've doing what artists do. They create. And we've had some really good albums, some of them completely by surprise. We had several artists deliver multiple surprise. Taylor Swift did it twice.
Yes.
And Eminem did it. Well, he's actually in the countdown, so a little foreshadowing. But we've had more than a few who have done that, just dropped surprise albums out of nowhere. And some of them have been quite good. And they're not everything's been great, but certainly it's been one of the bright spots, one of those silver linings they talk about when they talk about how bad the year has been music. So I'm going to go over my top 10. I actually had 44 albums that made the cut this year onto the Jawed Pod, or the Jawed Phone as it now is, which is quite a bit. Normally it's closer to 30. 44 made the cut. I made my top 10. And Sadie has a couple that she wants to talk about as well, too.
Yes.
So I'm just going to get right to it, and we'll see how it goes. Please leave your comments below if you have anything you want to say about these albums. Certainly, nobody hears everything in the course of a year, so there's a lot, obviously a ton that we didn't hear.
Exactly.
So, leave us your suggestions, too, if you think we would like something as well. Number 10 is a band that hasn't made an album in 34 years. And I had to check that. I have notes, so I can't remember everything, so I have notes. 34 years since the last album was made. This is their fourth studio album, and it's a hard rock band featuring the great vocals of Graham Bonnet, and one of the great vocalists of all time in the world of hard rock and metal. And Alcatraz is a band, like I said, their last album was in 1986. They have launched the careers of Yngwie Malmsteen, and Steve Vai was in Alcatraz. And this is their fourth album and fourth different guitarist. And it was worth the wait. Now, obviously, Bonnet's been making albums for years in between, but this is the first proper Alcatraz record. It's called Born Innocent, and it is my number 10 this year. It's sad because it took 34 years for them to get back together and make an album, and just a few weeks ago, it was announced that they split up again. They can't even make it through an album cycle. Graham Bonnet's going to do his own thing called Graham Bonnet's Alcatraz, and now Doogie White, who's a vocalist that's been around for years as well, is now heading up this version of Alcatraz. So it's sad, didn't last, but they made a great album. Born Innocent, fantastic. I'll do one more, and then I'll throw it over to Sadie for some of hers, or one of hers. Number 9 on the list this year is by the aforementioned Eminem. So we're going to take a pivot here. We're going to make a hard left. There's a very eclectic taste here in the household. Sadie's got an eclectic taste as well. Yeah. And, Eminem, I'm not a hip-hop guy. I'm not into the hardcore hip-hop. I just can't relate to the lyrically, and I just don't like the liberal use of some words. We won't get into that here. But Eminem's a guy who I can't relate to his lyrics. Like I've been there. However, I loved the wordplay, the way he uses his language.
He's a genius.
Yeah, Sadie would agree. And I actually find myself giggling at times. It's funny. Some of the diss tracks are particularly funny to me. And the way that he infuses the humor into it. Of course, the name of the album isn't very funny. Music to be Murdered By is the number 9 album of the year for me.
Many clips of Alfred Hitchcock.
Yes, it's got Alfred Hitchcock all over it. But which is part of that humor we're talking about. And even in some of his dissiest tracks, we'll say, Eminem at the end of the track will say, "I'm just kidding." You got to get him. You got to get him. So Eminem, Music to be Murdered By, is the number 9 album of the year. There are 36 tracks on this album, by the way, because it was a side B that came out a few weeks ago out of nowhere, which is also very good. This would have made number 9 either way. A lot of COVID
lyrics, a lot of COVID songs.
Yeah, very, very much of the times, Eminem, as he always is. So that's number 10 and number 9. Sadie, you want to talk about one of yours?
Yes, so let me just open up my little list here.
It's funny, you can tell who's new school and old school. I have the paper.
And mine's on my phone. So I am not as much like an album person per se. I listen to a lot of playlists that give me a lot of new artists and new songs. But there are a few albums that I did listen to in depth this year. One being an album called Red Herring by an artist we love. His name is Hala. I'm pretty sure it's actually a band. I have to get used to like saying that. But it's like indie rock, kind of psychedelic. His last album, or one of his last albums was called Spoonfed in 2016, and it was like psychedelic indie rock, really, really good. We were actually supposed to see him in May at a small record store, but sadly,
Creep
COVID.
Records in Philly, yeah, that was a result of COVID. Can't go.
I'm really sad about that because he's just so good. But his new album, I didn't start like in-depthly listening to it until like a couple weeks ago, and it's really good. Very like upbeat, it's happy, it's also chill. And, a couple of my favorite songs are, Lies, and there's like a few others on there that I really, really like from him.
Good bass. He's a good musician.
Yeah, and you could tell the difference between production.
Yeah.
And I'm not usually someone who pays attention to that, and it's just much more clear in Red Herring.
Good stuff. Holla. Who knows? All right, let's go on to number 8 for me. Another left turn, back to the hard rock side. Another band that's been around for, 145 years. I'm talking about Deep Purple. This is their 21st album, and they just keep making albums. It's crazy. The album's called Whoosh, with an exclamation point, which is consistent with their recent string of interesting album titles like Bananas, and they had an album called Now What, and now they have one called Whoosh. Whatever.
They like that onomatopoeia.
The onomatopoeia. The name of the album doesn't really matter. It's the music. So this is their third album with Bob Ezrin as producer. And I didn't particularly love the last one, Infinite. I thought it was okay. This one, though, much better songwriting. The band sounds so tight. They should sound tight. They're in their 70s. And, the young guy in the band who's only been there for 30 years is, 30 years? Yeah, almost 30 years, is Steve Morse, who's just a virtuoso on guitar. Tremendous. And again, his guitar talks. So Deep Purple Whoosh was a surprise. I knew I would get it, and I knew I would dig it, but I didn't think it would make the top 10, and it's a nice surprise. So Deep Purple, very, very good. They're not that old 60s and 70s hard rock, big organ, dirty down and, you can feel it in your bones type stuff anymore. It's more of a structured blues rock sound now, but great nonetheless. So that is my number 8 album of the year. We'll do another one, and we'll throw it back over to Sadie. Number 7 is a prog rock, the first prog rock entry of the list, and the final album by Icon Fish. And no, for you young people, it's not the PH version, it's the FISH version.
Fish food, Ben & Jerry's.
Fish, right, exactly, not the ice cream guys. Yeah. But Fish has been around forever. Of course, he was the lead singer of Marillion back in the early days. He left in '89, and he's had a very good solo career since. I've been lucky enough to catch him a few times live, which is great because he hasn't toured in many years here in the States. But his latest and final album is Welshmers. He says it's his final album. We'll see. It is tremendous. And again, his last 5 or 6 albums I haven't particularly liked. Matter of fact, I haven't really loved a Fish album since 1997's Sunsets on Empire, which was an album he did with Steven Wilson of Porcupine Tree back then. It just was a tremendous effort. And since then, he's been kind of roller coaster. The last one, Feast of Consequences, I didn't really like at all. So I didn't have high hopes for this one, but it took him a long time. He really put his heart and soul into it. And man, it's a winner. Welshmers is fantastic. Great combination of prog and just rock. And it's a very emotive, very emotional. And I highly recommend it if you want to. It's one you have to listen to straight through, as are some of these on this list. But it's a great album. Fish Welshmers is number 7. So let's go over to Sadie now. You want to talk about another one?
Sure. So another album that I was very into this year, which another one it took me a while, was, I don't believe it made your top 10, but Folklore, Taylor Swift. Right. I really like it. It's very, chill, and it's just a really good, you can listen to it straight through. It's not like a...
Tremendous.
There are many great songs, my favorites being probably Invisible String and Mirror Ball. But, Cardigan's so catchy, along with, like The Last Great American Dynasty. And I know that everyone loved it. I love her switch over to more of, like, the indie alternative genre. I haven't really listened to her last album, Lover. I never really listened to it. But I did see her in concert for her Reputation tour, because we got tickets. Like, and we ended up sitting on the floor like 10, 12 rows away from the stage, and it was amazing. Great concert, great performer. It's just that now that she's shifting into more of this alternative space, I think it's really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you got to admire how she keeps reinventing herself. Whether or not you're a fan of Taylor Swift, you have to respect it. It's amazing, and the relationship with her fans, second to none. I actually have it listed here as a what do you call it? A runner-up
Honorable
or
mention.
honorable mention, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, and you have to include Evermore too.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of companions, Folklore and Evermore.
I like
both
Champagne
tremendous.
Problems.
Me too.
And other songs on there.
Very, very good. Very impressive, Taylor Swift. So good choice there. Let's go to number 6 on the list. Number 6, staying in the prog genre, is tried and true. My favorite songwriter of the last 20, 25 years is Neil Morse. And he's done a lot of stuff. He's been very, very prolific. And this album was a slow burner for me. It was one that kind of started out slow and really took off later. I'm still liking it more and more with each listen. So Sola Gratia is the number 6 album on the list. He's made almost 20 albums since he's left Spock's Beard in 2002. That's amazing, prolific. And that's with multiple bands, Flying Colors, Neil Morse Band. And there's, Transatlantic, of course, which is coming out with their new album early in the first quarter of next year. Neil Morse, it just continues to make great music, and it touches your soul. It really does. Obviously, it's Christian, and I'm not a Christian, but I relate to it anyway. It's really about it's uplifting, it's spiritual. I haven't got Miss Sadie here. A couple years ago, we listened to the Momentum album a lot.
That was and my sister and I still listen to it all the time. We reference it. Her birth song, I don't know if everyone has those, or just like our family thing, was a Neil Morse song.
Wind at My Back from Snow.
Along with others that we mention like all the time.
Yeah. I'll go one more. Let's do number 5. Number 5 is another, I would say, prog-related project from Steven Wilson and Aviv Geffen. I'm talking about Blackfield, the album For the Music. So Blackfield came out with just a flurry with their first 3 albums, Blackfield 2, and then Welcome to My DNA, which were all, I think, 1 or number 2 on my annual albums list when they came out. And then Steven Wilson took a back seat. He gave the reins over to Aviv, and Aviv made Blackfield 4, which was notoriously just a very difficult record to like. It sounded like demos to me. It was a really step down. And I was very sad that we were losing Blackfield. But then Stephen returned for Blackfield 5. It was more collaborative. And again, they made a really good album of Blackfield 5. And now Blackfield 6, their 6th album since the debut in 2004, which is called For the Music, is an excellent album. Congratulations, Aviv. Stephen has very little input. Well, I think he sings lead on 3 songs. 3 very good ones, but Aviv does a great job on this. The songs are more complete. They sound done and not half-baked like Blackfield 4 was. So very, very high marks. Number 5 on the list is Blackfield For the Music. So we have 4 left in the countdown. Sadie, you want to throw another one in?
Yes. My next album is from an artist who is actually smaller than I thought she was. Her name is Joy Aladakun. Now, I'm more of like the singer-songwriter, indie, acoustic type vibe genre. So this album is very, very good. I knew a couple of her songs previously from something that I will talk about later, which would be like
foreshadowing.
Yeah. I knew a couple of her songs that were called Too High and Bad Blood, and she's very, very good. She's an African-American queer artist, and I've researched a lot about her recently because I was just wondering, like, who is she? And I found her Instagram, and she's a very interesting person.
How do you spell Aladakun, do you know?
Oladokun.
In case you want to look it up now, Joy Aladakun.
Yeah, I don't know. I forget if I mentioned the album. It's called In Defense of My Own Happiness, Volume 1. And it's the picture on the front of her is like her as a little kid. There's a lot of stuff referencing to her time growing up and whether she would be accepted or not. But there are, very good songs, very like uplifting. There's also another song that I love, which is more on like the slow, like kind of mellow, melancholy side. It's called Who Do I Turn To? Extremely interesting song. The lyrics are great and I love her voice. And I read a story about her a while back about how she had always wanted to pursue music, but she never had the resources to do it. Then one day one of her friends when she was in college asked her, if you had all the money in the world, what would you be doing right now? And she said, music, of course, no hesitation. So do it.
Yeah, it's
and
pretty
she
interesting.
did.
She needs more than one volume. You know, she's had a rough upbringing when she needs more than one record, volume 1, to defend her happiness.
And I think it's her second album.
Wow. So I guess there'll be the volume 2 to that. Good one, Joy Oladokun. All right, let's go on to the top 4. We'll do a couple more, and then we'll throw it back. You have any more? You have more on your list?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 4 on the list is another. Oh man, I'm showing my age. These guys go way back, almost as far back as Deep Purple. I'm talking about Blue Oyster Cult. And who would have thought? I've never owned a Blue Oyster Cult album. I've had some singles. I know the singles. Obviously, I know the hits. But I've never really listened much to Blue Oyster Cult. And then this album came out. The Symbol Remains. I saw some good reviews. And I gave it a listen, and I can't stop listening to it. It's tremendous. What a great variety on this album. It's their 15th album, and God bless them. They're 2 guys that have been with the band from day one, Buck Dharma and Bloom. I can't think of his first name. Anyways, they're 76 and 73 years old. Eric Bloom.
Asking me.
Yeah. I'm asking you. How old is Eric Bloom? So, yeah, they're 76 and 73 years old. And they're still making great music. This is a great hard rock album. And it's got a variety. There's a third lead singer now who is more of a contemporary, more of a clean singer, I would say. Really can wail. And he contributes a couple of tracks to it. But Buck Dharma and Eric Bloom really dominate this. There are some phenomenal songs on it. And I'm almost tempted now to start digging into that back catalog of a legacy band, which could take a while, but I'm very, very happy and pleased that I found this. Blue Oyster Cult, The Symbol Remains, is number 4. All right, number 3, a band that I had never heard of. This is actually their 6th studio album, and they're from Portland, Oregon.
Don't even know how to pronounce their name.
Oh, I know how to pronounce their name. You don't want to listen to this part. It's Starfucker. Shh, don't tell Sadie. She doesn't say those words. But it's labeled as STRFKR in all caps. But, okay, you can just phonetically work that out. The album is called Future Past Life. It is exactly what I've been getting into in recent years, which is more along the lines of what Sadie was saying with a singer. It's not singer-songwriter, but it is very indie, almost lo-fi. It's very, very melodic. The vocals are sort of are lower key, so you get that dreamy type of sound on some of the songs. And it's infectious. The melodies are just beautiful. And what can I say? That's that kind of stuff. I am a prog guy, I've said before, but man, that pop stuff just reels me in. And this is a band, STRFKR, that really will do that to you. The album is called Future Past Life, and it is number 3. So I'm going to do my number 2, and then I'll give it back to you one more time, okay? Number 2 is an album that I know Sadie and I share. I mean, Sadie was the one who introduced me to these guys. This is their 4th album, and it's also my biggest surprise, comeback of the year. I'm talking about Fleet Foxes and the album Shore. So we loved their first 2 albums very, very much. They were made to be heard on vinyl, and the packaging on them is wonderful. We listened to them quite a bit. Great artwork, exactly. And the second album, Helplessness Blues.
It's self-titled,
right?
And then Helplessness Blues, and then Crack Up.
Crack Up. And Crack Up was a more experimental, I guess. Robin.
Not great. He had it was after 4 or 5 years of not being together, right?
Yeah.
And he was at Columbia or something.
He went and finished his schooling, and he got really kind of out there. And Crack Up wasn't great, so I didn't expect much. Then when I heard the title to this new one, Shore, and I saw the artwork, which is that ocean view.
It's just really good.
We're on the Jersey Shore, and it's like, okay, this has potential just by the aesthetics of it. And then the album came out. It was released, very interesting. There's still no physical copy. It's not coming out until February in physical format, which is strange. We saw that a couple times with delays in shipping and delays in creation and manufacturing and all that. But this is an album that was released on streaming on their website. It just at 3:00 one day, all middle of August, I think it was. They just started streaming the album, and then you can download it, which is what I did through iTunes. We have Apple Music, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful, melodic, dreamy masterpiece. Fleet Foxes, so
nice
happy,
and chill.
Nice and chill, exactly, and it just puts you in that mood, man. If you've ever been down the beach in the summertime at twilight, 4 or 5 in the afternoon, you're sitting on your porch, you know what I'm talking about. So Fleet Foxes, Shore is the number 2 album of the year for me. Back to you.
So my next one, which is probably my number 1 album of the year, it's not that I haven't been as like into it lately, but again, I have been listening to other albums. But my favorite album of the year was probably Circles, Mac Miller, and I didn't get into it for a while. Like, I think I had heard one song, Good News. I had heard it before. I thought his voice was kind of strange. Like, I just wasn't into it. Then one day, since we have Sirius XM, we were listening to Coffee House Radio, and I heard it, and I was like, I should listen to this. And so I listened to the album, and I fell in love with it, because he transitioned from more of like a regular like rap kind of thing to more indie. Like, it's actually really interesting. And a lot of great songs are on there. The title track, Circles, is great. So is Good News. Woods. There's just, the whole album is great. And it's sad that it is, I think it's his last posthumous album. I don't know if he has any, I don't know if there's any other like pre-recorded stuff. And I haven't listened to as much the precursor to this, which was called Swimming, which is supposed to be the same kind of thing. I've listened to it about once or twice. But this is just really, really good.
Yeah, that's a good choice. I actually liked it too. And I mean, all I knew about him was that he was a troubled guy who was dating Ariana Grande. So Sadie turned me on to that as well. So very good stuff, Circles. All right, number one. We could reach number one. And we'll say some honorable mentions first. So we're at the 20-minute mark, so I don't want to take too long. Honorable mentions. As I said, I had 40-some albums on this list. A few, maybe 3 or 4 that I thought were just missed. Paul McCartney's latest, McCartney 3, which was another one of those surprise records that he threw out there. I haven't really gotten that one totally yet. I'm a huge fan. Lot more and may have different opinions as we go, but right now it's an honorable mention. I had Taylor Swift in my honorable mentions that Sadie mentioned. Kim Mitchell, the great Canadian guitarist, had an album, The Big Fantasize, which I liked. The Struts had a really good album, another surprise one that they created in quarantine called Strange Days. What else is on? The Pineapple Thief. I have to mention Haken, which is a great prog metal band. Their album Virus came out this year. Just missed.
Unironically.
Unironically, it was called Virus. That's right. Once and Future Band is a new prog band that's out there. Deleted Scenes was the album. Pretenders, after all this time. My first favorite band of all time was the Pretenders back in the 70s. They released an album called Hate for Sale. Phoebe Bridgers, Punisher, an album that Sadie and I both liked very much, was on this list. An excellent album. And BC Camplight, another one, a Philadelphia guy.
Strange yet very intriguing.
Strange. Shortly After Takeoff is the album. Very, very good. Anything else? Ozzy Osbourne. I didn't really. I guess I missed by a little bit. Another one I really liked was Sufjan Stevens' The Ascension. We both are Sufjan fans. Very, very mesmerizing. Very good stuff. And then I also have Pearl Jam on here, and Pet Shop Boys also amongst others. So there was the more you look at your list, you think, wow, there's actually a pretty good musical year.
Yeah.
But it was capped off for me, no doubt, by my number one, which was, much like another band on this list that I mentioned at number 3, is a band that I knew of, but never heard anything from, and this is their 9th album. So they've been around since the 90s, and I never heard of them or heard their stuff. They're called Nada Surf, and the album is called Never Not Together. 9th album since 1996. They're even from the Northeast. They're from New York City.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, Matthew, the lead singer, lives in London now, but they are from New York, and they were right in our backyard, 2 hours that way, and I never heard their music, but apparently they had a kind of a hit back in the 90s and more grungy. But this album, Never Not Together, is fantastic. It is a dream pop album that rocks hard at times. It's got cojones. It's got beautiful melodies. The songs are infectious. I picked 3 in my top 10 songs of the year, which is incredible considering all the songs that I had to choose from. Just very, very good. And it came out earlier this year, very, very early this year. And it stayed with me as my number 1 the entire year, which is also pretty impressive. Nada Surf, Never Not Together is my number 1 album of 2020. 2021, what have we got? Anything coming out next year we're looking for already?
I mean, I feel like I've looked, but I just don't know. Kate
knows?
Davis's next album, which
Kate
is
Davis.
a cover album, but that will be coming out.
Yes, I had that on pre-order.
There are...
Stephen Wilson has an album coming out, Transatlantic, if you're a prog fan. There's a lot of stuff slated for next year. And
There's a lot of people that I hope are going to release more music. One of my favorite artists, who I swear, if he had released an album this year, it would have been my favorite. His name is Marrow. And he's singer-songwriter, and he has 3 songs, and his first one came out in March, I believe, or February. It's called Perfume. His second single was called Hideous, and his third one is called Lightning.
Well, how do you spell Miro?
Mehro.
Let me say Mehro. Look him up.
He is absolutely wonderful, amazing, such a nice guy. Like, I've commented on a couple of his Instagram posts, and he always responds. I know, I'm like kind of famous. He's my friend now. But yeah, he's just amazing. The songs are so well written. He has music videos for all of them, and they're all like very. His music is just chill. Goes from kind of some of them are more sad, but some of them are more uplifting. And I'm very, very excited for him to release more music, as well as other things. This year has been more of a time for like musical discovery, especially because we've been inside for so long. So a lot of playlists. One of my favorite kinds being this new thing that has emerged through like social media and TikTok called like the main character playlist, which is songs you can just belt out that make you feel like you're the main character. And that's a lot of the music that I've been interested in.
The main character.
Main character.
All right. Well, see, music is delivered differently now than it ever was in my lifetime, certainly. I learned a lot just by being around kids today, that's for sure. And that's one of the things, that main character playlist. Anyway, that's it. We're at 26 minutes, so we will stop here. Thank you for watching, everybody. Thank you for watching all year. And we'll see you really, really soon. Who knows what 2021 holds? Please have a happy and healthy and safe new year. And we'll see you all very soon.